Okay, so we have built the first quadrant of our unit circle. Okay, now we need to fill in the other 4 quadrants. So let's start by looking at our first 30, 60, 90 triangle. Okay, so I can draw the same thing in the second quadrant. Okay, a triangle that looks like this. This is the 30, this is the 60, this is the 90. Okay, it's going to work out to be the same thing, right? My hypotenuse is still 1. The side opposite the 30 is going to be 1/2 times 1. The side opposite this 3, or opposite the 60, is going to be square root of 3 over 2. And I guess let me just write these in here. Okay, but we are on a coordinate plane, right? And so when we move to the left on a coordinate plane, that point becomes negative. So my x value here is actually going to be negative. My y value is still positive because I'm in the second quadrant, but my x value is negative. So it works out to be exactly the same except for the sign of the x value. Okay, I can do this again. And if this was a perfect circle, it would be better. I can do this again. Okay, but this time the x value is negative because I'm in the third quadrant, and the y value is also negative because I'm in the third quadrant. Okay, and then I can do it once again in this fourth quadrant. Okay, this time the x value is positive and the y value is negative. Okay, same thing for my 45, 45, 90 triangle, right? If I draw this 45, 45, 90 triangle, okay, points are going to work out to be the same except that the x value will be negative. Okay, y value is still positive. Okay, same thing here. X value is negative and the y value is also negative, and then same thing. Okay, my x value is positive and my y value is negative. Okay. Last thing I'm going to do is my 60-degree angle. Okay, and the pattern is still the same. X value is negative here and y value is positive. Okay, x value is negative, y value is positive. All right, so those are our points of the unit circle. Okay, and I'm going to put just a hard copy of a unit circle in the course for you. Okay, but I want you to see how we built this first. Okay, I need to fill in a few more things here. Okay. 30 degrees, right, is pi over 6 radians. Okay, so I have this written in degrees. I also want to have this in radians. Okay, so all of these 30 degrees, I'm going to skip the 45, but all the other angles, okay, are going, are pi over 6. So intervals of pi over 6. So this is pi over 6. This would be 2 pi over 6, and I'm going to come back and reduce this in a second. This would be 3 pi over 6. Okay, this is 4 pi over 6. Okay, this is 5 pi over 6. This is 6 pi over 6. This is 7 pi over 6. Okay, this one down here, I ran out of room, is 8 pi over 6. This is 9 pi over 6. This is 10 pi over 6. I missed one somewhere. Whoops. Sorry. This is 10 pi over 6. This is 11 pi over 6. And this is 12 pi over 6. Okay? So I wanted you to see these. I do need to reduce them, so now I'm going to do that. 2 pi over 6 reduces to pi over 3. Okay, 3 pi over 6 reduces to pi over 2. Okay, 4 pi over 6 reduces to 2 pi over 3. 5 pi over 6 doesn't reduce. 6 pi over 6 just reduces to pi, which makes sense. Right, I'll talk about that in just a second. 7 pi over 6 doesn't reduce. 8 pi over 6, okay, reduces to 4 pi over 3. 9 pi over 6 reduces to 3 pi over 2. Okay, 10 pi over 6 reduces to 5 pi over 3. Okay, 11 pi over 6 doesn't reduce. 12 pi over 6 reduces to 2 pi. And this is also 0. This is our starting point. Okay, 45 is pi over 4, right? So you're essentially cutting this into fourths. So pi over 4, right? This 90-degree mark, okay, we already did that, but this would also be 2 pi over 4. Okay, this is going to be 3 pi over 4. This would be 4 pi over 4. Okay, this one is 5 pi over 4. This is 6 pi, whoops, just kidding. This one, and I don't have room to write it, this is 6 pi over 4. This is 7 pi over 4, and this is 8 pi over 4. Okay, so let's go back through and reduce. Pi over 4 doesn't reduce. 2 pi over 4 reduces to pi over 2. We already got that, but I just wanted you to see that that is the same thing. 3 pi over 4 doesn't reduce. 4 pi over 4 reduces to pi. Again, we already got that. That's good. 5 pi over 4, this is 6 pi over 4, which reduces to 3 pi over 2. 7 pi over 4, and 8 pi over 4 reduces to 2. Okay, so last thing we're doing here is putting our degrees in here, and I know I have a lot in here. This is really messy. Okay, but I'm going to show you a cleaner version in just a second. Okay, so we need to finish up by putting our degrees in here. Okay, there's a couple of ways that we can do this. Okay, so we can think about this in terms of 30, 60. This is 90 degrees, okay, straight up. That means that this next angle would be 120 degrees. Okay, this next angle would be 150 degrees, right? I'm skipping these 45s. This angle out here would be 180 degrees. Okay, this angle out here would be 270 210 degrees. Okay, this angle down here would be 240 degrees. Okay, this one that's straight down, it's 270 degrees. Okay, this angle right here is 300 degrees. Okay, this one would be 330 degrees. And then all the way around would be 360 degrees, which is also 0 degrees. Okay? All right. Or we can look at it a different way, right? So this angle actually is a 30-degree angle from 180, right? So this is 180 degrees. We talked about this when we were looking at radian and degree measure. So if we come up 30 degrees from 180, right, we're actually subtracting, so that gives me 150. This is 60 degrees, so if we come up 60 degrees from this 180 degrees, we're subtracting. 180 minus 60 is 120. Okay, if we go 30 degrees from here, we're adding, which gives me 210. Okay, we're adding here, which gives me 240. We're adding 60. Okay, from this, okay, then we have this 270 degrees, right? Okay, we come over here. This angle right here from 360, we're going backwards. Essentially, we're subtracting. So 360 minus this 30-degree angle gives us 330. Okay, 360 minus the 60 gives us 300. So we can look at it either way, but it's important to understand both. Okay, last thing we need to do is put these 45-degree angles in here. We already know that that one's 45 degrees. Okay, 45 plus 45 is 90. Plus 45 is 135. Okay, plus 45 is going to give us the 80, or 180, sorry. Okay, plus 45 is going to give us 225. Okay, plus 45 gives us 270. Okay, 270 plus 45 is going to give us 315. Okay, we can look at this the same way, right? We're going from 0 here to 45, so that gives us 45 degrees. 180 minus 45 is 135. 180 plus 45 here is 225, and 360 minus 45 is 350. Okay, so I know that's really messy, but that is our unit circle. Okay. So here's a nice clean version of the unit circle, and I'm going to put this in the course for you so you have this. Okay, but you should be able to set this up on your own. You should understand how it works, and we're going to talk about that in the next video. And you need to memorize this. Okay, I'm also going to put another video in here done by somebody else that shows how to set up the unit circle that I think might be an easier way for you to set up the unit circle, but I wanted to show you this way because I want you to understand how it is set up. Okay, so I'm going to stop this video here. I'm going to make one more video and explain how we now use the unit circle to evaluate trig functions.